And these are the first words from the Indian government, the Indian military, since the sinking of an Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka by an American submarine on Wednesday morning. The Indian Navy has issued a statement saying that it did receive a distress call. It sent ships and aircraft in order to aid in the rescue and relief operations that were being led by the Sri Lankan Navy. Vishnu Shom is live with us. Vishnu, a statement coming nearly 2 days later, that in itself is rather surprising. What are you making of this statement from the Indian Navy?
Well, I completely agree with you, Shiv. Why does a statement like this need to come 2 days later? If India was involved in rescue and relief operations, a humanitarian cause after a distress signal was received from a warship which had come under attack, and a warship which was in fact deployed off Visakhapatnam for India's international fleet review, then what was wrong with coming out with that statement earlier on? So questions will be asked about that, but it is fortunate that we've got this detail. Remember, the IRIS Dena, which was a small frigate of the Iranian Navy, was sunk by the US operating a nuclear-powered attack submarine. India, in fact, did a lot. There was an alert which was sounded first in Sri Lanka. Indian patrol aircraft reached the area at 10:00 hours on the 4th of March. Another aircraft with airdroppable life rafts was kept on standby. IRIS Tarangani, which is a sail ship, a trading sail ship, was in the area and actually moved in with assistance, with rafts and with lifeboats and the life rafts, etc., life vests. Apart from that, INS Ikshak also sailed from Kochi to augment the entire search and rescue efforts, and that ship, as I understand it, is still deployed in Sri Lankan waters to try and see if there are any mortal remains or survivors that they can pick up. So India most certainly did reach out and assist the moment word got out. Word of this didn't get out to the media because there was no government announcement of this. I wonder why. That's odd.
I'm wondering, Vishnu, whether, it's taken a couple of days because, it has been a hot combat situation. Maybe the system has been assessing, how to interpret this and handle this and the messaging around this, given that you've got Trump on the one hand, you've got Iran on the other. Iran explicitly called their warship that was sunk today a guest of the Indian Navy. It's almost like the Indian Navy had to issue a statement today.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if there is a distress call, any nation, any navy has to respond. India we consider ourselves a net provider of safety, of maritime safety and security in the Indian Ocean. Our response from a naval standpoint was bang on, but there was no announcement of it. I reached out to the Navy and I said, please give me a statement, please share details of this. But at that stage, there was no such statement. So really, it is something that tests foreign policy as well. Why exactly did India hold back from sharing this sort of information? The fact of the matter is that India acted exactly the way we should. When there is a humanitarian distress, people are crying for help, you go and assist them.
Yeah.
It's not about balancing Trump versus balancing Iran. It's a straightforward humanitarian decision.
So in terms of the actions, the Indian Navy did precisely the professional and right thing. It sent help as quickly as possible. It aided in the rescue and relief effort and did everything according to protocol. The debate and the controversy is over what the government needs to do next. And that's what we're going to debate tonight. Vishnu, thank you very much for joining me. An American submarine sinks an Iranian warship not far from Indian waters off the coast of Sri Lanka, and suddenly India finds itself at the center of a storm it never asked to enter. Did this incident dent India's authority as the preeminent power of the Indian Ocean region, the net security provider? Or is India absolutely right to be pragmatic and stay out of someone else's war, even if this is our oceanic backyard? The fact that India hosted this very Iranian warship just days before it went down has become an emotive flashpoint. Does that make India morally complicit, or is it plainly absurd to hold India responsible for a visiting vessel from Iran once it sails back into international waters? Tonight the debate is angry, it is multi-layered, and it is real. Military, diplomatic, legal, moral, and intensely political, of course. This is, after all, India. The Indian Ocean is India's ocean to set the rules and agenda on, or so we've always said. So what does this incident say about that claim? Tonight, these are the big questions that I'm asking. Question number one, did India know about this US submarine mission where it attacked and sank an Iranian warship? Did India have any inkling about it? Did it have any prior knowledge? Number two, is it okay for India to remain silent on the incident? You've just heard the Indian Navy issue its first statement. The Indian government has not done so far. Does it need to put out a statement? Number three, has India's regional authority been harmed in any way or undermined, as some are suggesting? Does this undermine the Indian Navy's operations in any way, given that it happened in areas where the Indian Navy assumes dominance? Number five, are there legal, moral and diplomatic questions, or is this purely a military issue and there is no place for any emotions while we debate this? These are the questions I'm asking tonight. But joining me live to kick off this conversation, I'm very honored to have Admiral Arun Prakash, a former chief of the naval staff, someone who has spoken out about this. I did see a post of his on social media. Welcome, Admiral Prakash. I wish these were better circumstances for a conversation, but these are very, very testing times. A major incident has taken place in India's backyard, just 20 nautical miles off the coast of Sri Lanka. And I want to start by quoting a post that you've put up in reaction to this incident, Admiral, where you have called it a senseless and inflammatory act. I'd like to start with that by asking you why you think so.
Well, we all know that Iran and the USA are at war. They are belligerents. And obviously this has spread to the maritime domain also, the belligerence, the war fighting. But given that India is a strategic partner of the USA, a major defense partner, these are terms that have been commonly used, I was somewhat surprised and disappointed that if this ship had to be attacked, Iranian warship had to be attacked, why does it have to be attacked within, at our doorstep virtually? So that's a surprising part. I mean, it could have been done at anywhere, but why make a point of attacking and sinking Iranian warship right at our doorstep? So I thought that was a thoughtless act. And secondly, we worry a lot about Chinese and PLA Navy units, submarines lurking in our waters. But here we have a so-called friend, partner, whatever you call him. Obviously, this nuclear attack submarine has been in these waters. They're not our waters, but on the high seas in our region. And we have no inkling about it. So these are issues which are of grave concern.
What kind of message do you think the United States was trying to send, if any, to India by choosing the location of this attack, as you're suggesting, Admiral?
I hope that they were not sending a message to India. I mean, they can talk to us and convey whatever they want to. Perhaps it was a message more to Iran and to say that, there's nowhere you can hide. We've got a long reach. And secondly, to Beijing to say that, look, we are all pervasive. So these are the kind of messages that they possibly wanted to send, but, undertaking this action in such close proximity to our waters was a bit of a disappointment.
There's a polarized debate on, how to see this incident, Admiral, and I wanted your view, because there is one section that says that this incident, there are many former foreign secretaries, strategic affairs commentators who say that this incident basically undermines India's authority in this maritime backyard of ours, the fact that it happened so close. Would you agree with that assessment, that it undermines us in some way?
No, I don't think so. We are not in competition with the United States Navy at all. And these terms that we use, net security provider, etc., they are used in a different context. That's not a security undertaking that we are going to extend protection to everybody in the region. Net security provider means when there is a natural disaster or a search and rescue issue or something like that, we'll reach out, and in normal times we do reach out to all our maritime neighbors and render assistance, whether it is hardware or advice or whatever it is. So one shouldn't give an unnecessary connotation to this. Our standing, I don't think, is affected by this incident. USA will do what it will, and especially under an unpredictable leader like like Trump, one can't say what's going to happen, and not everything that they do is rational. If you look at the recent events, everything doesn't fit into the frame of rationality.
The Iranian ambassador today, Admiral, when he spoke out, and also the Iranian foreign minister, when he was talking about this sinking of their warship, he added the fact that this ship was a guest of India, until a few days ago. And that has become a kind of emotive flashpoint in the conversation that's happening around this incident. Do you think that has anything to do with how we should interpret what happened? Is there a liability or responsibility in some way on the Indian Navy or indeed on India itself that this ship was our guest until a few days ago and then sailed out and was attacked in this manner?
Yes, that aspect is certainly there. You can't wish it away that it was our guest till a few days away. We gave it hospitality. We entertained them. Their commanding officer must have called on our admirals, etc. And the moment it sails out of Indian waters, it gets attacked and sunk. So that emotive, sentimental factor is very much there. You can't wish it away. And we are right. I'm sure the Indian Navy as hosts do feel upset that this should have happened. But if you take a realistic view of this whole issue, the moment this ship sailed out of Indian waters, we had no control or responsibility for it. The commanding officer of this warship must be aware that its country is at war. And once it puts out to sea, it is at risk. There is no doubt about it. He shouldn't have had any doubt.
Yeah.
He could have asked for asylum or asked for sanctuary in an Indian or a neutral port. That can be done. There are limits to that. But obviously, he didn't think, he is presumed that being on the high seas would afford him some kind of protection. It didn't. So I think we should separate the two. Yes, there is reason to feel upset and hurt or whatever that one of our guests has been sunk within days of leaving port. But at the same time, we are not legally or in any way responsible for what happened, and we should not feel responsible except for the search and rescue part, which we can talk about.
Indeed, and the other side of this entire conversation is that, it is, while it is normal to feel hurt or emotional about the tragic aspect of it, and you cannot ignore the fact that they were your guests recently, the other side of it, Admiral, is that why would India want to wade into this, into the heat of this combat and this war? Like you said, you've got a very volatile leader leading this charge. So why should India feel pressured to kind of wade in and comment on it and react on it, etc.? Would you agree with that, or would you say India should have a say since this is our region?
No, India has no business to get involved in this conflict. So far, we've been out of it, and I think we should stay well out of it. But at the same time, a friendly country like America should have had some consideration for if it's going to take kinetic action. Then it had multiple choices of doing what it did. So it should have had some consideration. And I think a message does need to be sent that we are not happy with this. And these messages can go through diplomatic back channels, etc. You don't have to make open statements, especially given the fact that the reaction of the US leader is, often irrational. He'll slap sanctions or tariffs on you. What can you do? You can't appeal against. So I think we have to tread carefully. And yet, we must take a ethical and moral stand and convey this message through some other kind of channels that we are not happy about what you did. That should certainly be done.
The Indian government is yes. Admiral, the Indian government is obviously treading very cautiously. There's been no official statement from the government, not from the External Affairs Ministry, but the Indian Navy has put out a statement just before we began this broadcast where they've basically detailed the search and rescue operations and how they answered the distress call of the warship. They've put out those details and nothing else. I'm just wondering, do you think that the Indian Navy should be interpreting what has happened in any particular way? From a military perspective, how would you see it? How should the Indian Navy be seeing it?
No, it is not the Indian Navy's business to assess such issues and comment on them. They must be assessing it, obviously, but it's not for them to make any public comments. But as far as search and rescue is concerned, let me tell you that the Indian Ocean search and rescue region, it's a 4.5 billion square kilometers, is the direct responsibility of India. And this responsibility is discharged by the Indian Coast Guard. search and rescue is the direct responsibility of the Indian Coast Guard, and I have no doubt that this distress message on a distress frequency must have been received. I have no doubt that they must have responded and taken necessary actions, everything that was required. Now, whether they made a statement or not is not up to them to make statements. Statements are made by government spokesmen and so on.
Final question, Admiral. This is a shape-shifting story. This particular war is on its 6th day now. As someone who has led the military here in India, how should India see what is playing out very much in our backyard since yesterday, but in the region in general? Because the old rules seem to have gone straight out of the window, sir. Final point.
Yes, we've been watching this happening, that the post-World War II international order has been completely scrapped. Now you can do what you want to do. You can pick up heads of state and their wives and take them away and so on. So harking back to a rule-based international system is waste of time. Now, of more immediate concern are two facts. One is that the Hormuz Strait has been blocked. At least Iran has declared that it is blocked. And the instant reaction of the marine insurance company has been to send the insurance rates skyrocketing. Freight rates are going up. So this will, and shipping is going to go around the Cape of Good Hope. All this will have an impact on not just oil and gas and so on, but on items of daily use by the common man on the street. And who's going to get hurt most? The developing, the poor nations.
Yeah.
And now with this sinking of the Dena in the Indian Ocean waters, this is going to send messages of alarm to the shipping world. So shipping is going to be in turbulence, and that's going to have a very adverse impact. So if for nothing else, if not for peace on earth, etc., for these particular reasons, the Indian government, the Indian statesmen and diplomats should exert whatever influence they can to persuade the belligerents that it's time to tone down and call off this conflict. And fortunately, we have good relations with all three belligerents, USA, Israel, Iran. And we should be able to persuade them that this is in nobody's interest, and it's going to cause great harm and suffering all over the world. It's time to call a halt and start coming to the negotiation table. That's the best that the Indian government can do.
Admiral Arun Prakash, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much for your time tonight on India Matters, sir. I want to show you the path that the IRIS Dena took from Visakhapatnam. I have a map here. The ship had docked in Visakhapatnam on the east coast of India because it was there for the International Fleet Review and the Milan series of exercises where many navies send ships and delegations there for an international multinational convention. It happens every year. The ship then sailed. After everything was over, it was sailing back towards Iran when 20 nautical miles west of Galle, in the southern part of Sri Lanka, is where the ship was torpedoed. You had the US Navy submarine somewhere over here, and it was torpedoed right off the coast of Sri Lanka. This ship was, as you can see, basically on its way back to Iran. Now, we can sit here and talk endlessly about why this ship decided to get into international waters when it knew there was open war, and Trump had basically warned that this was going to be a time of decimation for the Iranian Navy. But that is something we will perhaps never have an answer to. But that was the path they took. How does a torpedo hit and sink a ship? This is a question I've been getting all day today. So I thought I'll spend just half a second explaining how this actually happens, because you've seen an 11-second clip of that ship being hit by a torpedo and simply being broken into and then sinking. It's a haunting image, but how does it happen? Modern torpedoes are designed to explode practically under the ship. They find the most vulnerable part of the hull. They're intelligent machines. After the explosion, that's when physics takes over. The explosion beneath the keel of the ship creates a massive gas bubble. That bubble then expands violently, lifting the ship practically out of the water for a split second. And once the ship is lifted out of the water under its own weight and physics, it practically breaks into two because it cannot bear its own weight. The structure simply collapses. The gas bubble collapses and the ship slams back down on the water. That impact breaks the ship's backbone, which is the keel. It cripples the propulsion power and the structural integrity. The ship breaks and begins to go down in the water, at which point it is completely flooding with hundreds of tons of water every minute. A catastrophic hit can sink a ship in 15 minutes or less. That is how a torpedo does its terrible work, and that is how the IRIS Dena was also sunk. And we've got more breaking news coming in. A day after that Iranian warship was sunk off the coast of Sri Lanka, another Iranian warship is looking to dock for safety in Colombo in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka claims that there is a threat from the enemies of Iran, warning it not to provide safety or a safe haven to this Iranian warship. A Lankan minister has spoken to the media to say, I have instructed the Navy not to allow the Iran ship to dock in Sri Lanka. Can you imagine this situation, viewer? Lanka says Iran's enemies, whoever they are threatening us with attacks. And right now, Iran's enemies are basically the United States and Israel. Those two countries, it is insinuated, are threatening Lanka, even though Lanka has not taken the names of any countries. They merely say Iran's enemies are threatening us with attacks if we allow this Iranian warship to dock in Colombo or Galle or wherever in order to get some kind of safety, because they feel vulnerable out at sea after their sister ship was sunk. Vishnu Shom is live with me. Vishnu, this is a very, very precarious situation. The minister in Lanka saying he's instructed the Navy not to allow that Iranian ship to dock in Sri Lanka. That ship wants safety from American torpedoes.
Well, if that's the case, then India should move right in. If there is a humanitarian issue over here, if they feel that, if they say that they're going to likely be potentially lose their lives as a result of a torpedo attack, and if they come to an Indian port, then India, as the net security provider of this entire region, should perhaps extend a helping hand. This isn't picking sides, this is saving lives. So therefore, it's a difficult choice. Sri Lanka is a very small nation. They don't have any navy to really speak about. And for them, perhaps they can be arm twisted by America. India is a larger country. As I said, we are a net maritime security provider in this particular region. If the ship were to come into Indian waters, then we should protect them and get the crew out. It's as simple as that. It's not something that we are voluntarily doing by going against the Americans. It's being done entirely on humanitarian grounds. On humanitarian grounds, you can do this. You're not picking a side. You're not saying America is wrong in going after Iran, or Iran is wrong in going after the America, etc., etc. You are helping people in distress.
The Indian Navy, as you just reported, Vishnu, has issued a statement on search and rescue for the ship that was sunk yesterday. Would the Indian Navy be moving in? Do we know if they are, contemplating addressing this situation in case Sri Lanka doesn't? Because that would literally mean assisting a combatant. I heard what you said, but assisting what Trump and the US Navy are seeing as fair targets and combatants in the Indian Ocean.
Well, that's just the issue. If India does deploy ships to escort this this Iranian tanker into one of our ports, then there is nothing that really prevents them from being seen, or these ships, Indian Navy ships, being seen as combatants themselves. It is a diplomatic issue. It's a delicate one. This needs to be resolved not by the navies of any side, but by the two sides picking up the phone and then discussing this and ensuring that nothing happens. It's as simple as that. The ship, as it were, if the goal was to take it out of operation, which is what America has been trying to do, fine, let the ship be in India. It's just a ship. Let the people on board who have appealed and are in distress, as I understand it, be given sanctuary somewhere. If Sri Lanka can't do it, surely we can. The question is whether it's too late.
War is a terrible and violent business, but humanitarian relief was certainly not on America's mind when it torpedoed that ship yesterday. So I'm wondering whether anyone with humanitarianism on their mind trying to help another ship will be seen as a hostile action by the United States. But Vishnu, you're right. This is a complicated and messy situation. And I don't envy those who need to take the decisions at this point of time. But thank you for your inputs on this big breaking story. There are more questions that I'm asking tonight on this developing and evolving story. And as you can see from what we've told you so far, it is a story with a lot of convolutions, and it's a story that is very difficult to pin down. The question that I'm asking, was India also caught by surprise by the sinking of that Iranian vessel, which happened to be a guest of the Indian Navy until just a few days before? In the heat of war, Why should India comment? You've just heard Admiral Arun Prakash. He agrees. He says India should not get into this directly, should not feel pressured to comment and make a bold statement of any kind. Number 3, does silence in any way undermine India's stature, or does it just show pragmatism? This is not our war. Why should we get into this? Number 4, as a guest of India, this ship was called a guest of India by Iran. Does that imply that there's some liability on us? Friend number 1 sinks friend number 2. Remember, India is good friends with both Iran and the United States. So what can India do in this situation is the question. Joining me live now, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff and Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Western Naval Command. He's also a veteran naval aviator. Welcome, Admiral Sinha. And Ambassador Shashank is former Foreign Secretary of India. Ambassador Shashank, welcome. Good to have you both with us. Admiral Sinha, I'd like to quickly come to you first. It's the first question that that comes to my mind at this time. We've just had Admiral Arun Prakash on the show as well. He says, this is not India's war. India should not feel pressured, to make some kind of a statement or get into it or posture. But is there something that India needs to do, in your view, given that this warship was sunk in our so-called oceanic backyard?
Not at all. We were expecting that the US Navy, with whom we have very good equation, and they have done it in the past, at least tell us that we are having and we are increasing our operational area, let's say up to 100 miles from the Dondra head, which is tip of the Sri Lankan Sri Lankan state. So it is not so much that they should have told us what they are going to do. No, we don't want to, and nobody would like to do that. But if we know that there are operations going on, we would have directed our ships, submarines, and the merchant marine, which is bringing cargo and important stores from other countries into Indian ports. Thank God, if they were operating in this area and there was a misfire on the torpedo, it would have taken one of the ships down. So I think that it's only in the name of safety. We are partners in Quad, we are partners in Malabar, we have 2+2. I mean, in the sense with the US Navy and Indian Navy are a very good sort of equation with each other.
Yeah.
So that surprises me as to why they didn't inform us. They should have. We are not going to part with this knowledge. We don't want to know what they are going to do. It has happened in our backyard, yes. If you look at it, emotionally, yes. But legally, there is no binding.
Yeah.
Quite away.
I understand what you're saying. Ambassador Shashank, does this in any way, because one suggestion that has been made is that the fact that this happened in India's backyard, by an Indian partner or friend or whatever you want to call it, in some ways undermines India's or the Indian Navy's authority in the Indian Ocean region. Where do you stand on this, sir?
No, there are two aspects. One is the emotional aspect. The Indian people feel that, well, they were our guests till a few days ago. And now that the war has started in the meantime, they have taken this step of stepping into the international waters. So legally, we really have nothing to do with it. It is really between the belligerents. And if they are increasing the area of their mutual destruction, we can just take note of it and try to ensure that the non-combatants, that's like the Indian ships of any kind, whether the naval ships or the marine ships, merchant ships, they should not be troubled at all. So the international thing should continue. Now, when it comes to the neighborhood of the Iran, there, of course, things are different, because we know that they are blocking the Gulf and they don't want any ships to go out. Most of the Arab countries have blocked, they have stopped the production of the oil and gas supplies. So we are going to face the effect of all that very soon. So that is the other thing which we have to convey to the belligerents, that what they are doing, that is harming the non-combatants like India, who otherwise are friendly with everyone else among the belligerents. So there should be some action for the others and some action for among the belligerents. So I think that is the issue which we need to discuss with our friends. Let's say whether it is in our region, China, Russia, then in the United Nations. I mean, USA is withdrawn from many of the international organizations, but they're still members of some of them.
Yes.
So at least those organizations we can try to share our thoughts with them that there should be certain responsibility. And some, as Admiral Sinha is saying, there's some method whereby they inform the others. We are not seeking we are not giving any approval to them, but at least they make sure that our ships don't get involved. Yeah. Finally, I think I heard about Vishnu Som was saying about India trying to protect the second ship, seeking humanitarian assistance. There I would say that, well, for humanitarian assistance, there are certain principles. I think if they really want to give up their, let's say, the Iranian flag and say that, all right, we are willing to go like a normal conditions, either we move into smaller boats or we try to go under the flag of some other country which will take care of, ensure that this ship is not used for any kind of direct combatant duties.
Understood.
So I think that could be another possibility.
Understood. Admiral Sinha, I want to zoom back in on the incident in question, which was the sinking of the IRIS Dena yesterday. At the time that the ship sailed out from Visakhapatnam, it was clear, that combat was very much on in Iran. Trump had already begun a campaign of, attempting to destroy the Iranian Navy. Ships had already been sunk. Why, in your view, would this ship then sail out from Visakhapatnam knowing that it is going to be vulnerable in open ocean, sir? Is there an answer to that question?
No, I mean, as a naval officer and those commanded ships, I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
I would have got in touch with my headquarters and said that, look, this is what is happening and I have decided to stay put in the port. Unfortunately, what has happened, he sailed out, as you rightly said, Shiv, that it was on the cards, but it had not happened.
Yeah.
It's only when he got out after the exercise and came closer to the Sri Lankan coast that the war was declared, in the sense that, wars are never declared these days. None has been declared after Second World War, I guess. So there he learned, even at that time, he should have asked somebody to enter harbour. He just pressed on. Number one. Second thing is, a warship does not go absolutely unprepared. All our warships, submarines, when they sail out, Shiv, they are fully armed every time. It's not that only when the tensions are high, because we are on, deployment.
It's a warship, yeah.
Deployment. We are deployed at what they call the 7 places that you mentioned in your last program, right? Mission-based deployment, MSD. You had covered it so well.
Yes.
So these are the 7 places. Why it is armed? Because if something erupts all of a sudden, we are living in an era where the wars will not be declared, and there can be a shadow war.
Correct.
What you call is grey zone warfare. 2 nuclear armed countries are neighbors on our borders with whom we have unresolved border issues. So we should not, and that is why we are always armed, so that you don't have to come back to the harbour to take those ammunition. That's a criminal. You can't do that. So, and he should have all the sensors on. I don't know why his sonar was not on. Why was he not ready? We would have been in action station. What is the condition 1? If it is whole night, be it. We have stayed in Parakaram. I had 20 ships under my charge, and all of them were fully ready to attack, fire only on one executive order. And when we pulled out from Makran coast, everybody was fully armed and ready to attack. Because this is a day, they all know what is happening in Gulf.
Yeah.
Therefore, all the more reason that they should have been fully alert. Nobody was alert.
And you're right, and they just pressed on. There was no escort, and I understand this ship has a very rudimentary kind of anti-submarine capability, and for all practical purposes, it was a sitting duck. It had no defenses against something like a nuclear-powered attack submarine. But the location or the choice, we can only speculate about the details, Ambassador Shashank. But some suggest that the choice or the of location for this attack so close to Indian waters is something of a strategic message as well. Do you think that's just a conspiracy theory, or do you think some kind of a subliminal message is also being sent to India, given that this attack could have happened anywhere in the Arabian Sea, didn't have to be so close to Indian shores?
Well, it could be anywhere. I'm quite sure that there was a little bit of feeling that among the various messages which are being sent, there will be a message to India also that while it is not directly against India's interests, But please keep in mind that US interests are supreme. And once we try to take any final decisions, it may hurt your interests also. Not just now, but in future. So we have to just take care of that. And we have to make it very, very clear that our greatest support base is our population. That if our people need any, let's say, energy needs are there, if there are any needs are there as a democracy, we have to take care of those interests. That's the most important thing. And that was one of the reasons which our government has been saying again and again, that our Prime Minister had gone to Israel, because when we found that Israel was the only one which was supporting us so strongly with technology exchange, with R&D development, etc., on anti-terror operations, whereas all the other countries are either supporting Pakistan or were keeping away from all this. So we had to protect ourselves because our Operation Sindoor is still on.
Yes.
And we still know that our enemies are out to create a problem within India or among the Indian populations living abroad. So we have to take care of that.
Admiral Sinha, I'll end with you one final point. As a military man, do you think there are any lessons for the Indian Navy, for the Indian system as to what happened here? Of course, there are many strategic messages as well, but purely from a military perspective, are there any lessons? I'm sure there will be high-level, meetings about this in navies across the region. What about the Indian Navy, sir?
Well, I'm sure that they are studying this very closely. I just had a chat with the senior officials, and they are studying. But I would say, as far as strategic message is concerned, not really, because both these countries, America is our partner in everything that we will do in future in this part of the world, in the Indo-Pacific, and therefore, as far as the coordinated actions are concerned, we are very much with them. We know the procedures, we know how we are going to take on some adversary together. But this is a very, one-off situation. But what I would have said, at least our ships, if I was in Western Naval Command, I would have said, tell all the ships that please make sure that your sensors are on all the time, and you are doing the anti-submarine searches frequently. PATI, the PATI had picked up this fellow. PATI was on a normal routine patrol, and he also reported. And that is how the Indian one survey ship was sailed from Cochin, and he has assisted. He has assisted in the pickup. Now somebody is saying that why didn't they announce? Now what has happened is that when the government the first step has been taken today by officially recognizing that Ayatollah is dead, by Foreign Secretary having gone there and signed. So that's the right time for no other service is supposed to make press statement. It is always the MOD. We have a press people. They are in direct dialogue with our MEA, and that is how it works. Our systems are quite fine-tuned. So while we do work, it was for the Sri Lankan Navy. If required, they should have said, because we were assisting them in search and rescue, really. So I think, the government's actions right now, why they went and signed today, why they acknowledged today, that can be debated, and maybe Ambassador Shashank is a Foreign Secretary. He will be better person to answer this.
Admiral Shekhar Sinha and Ambassador Shashank, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me tonight on this discussion.
Thank you for getting me on your program.
Viewer, with that debate done, I wanted to leave you with another thought on this very topic, because there is a separate reason why that American submarine torpedoing and sinking an Iranian warship at our doorstep should come as a loud wake-up call. As you know, this was America's first submarine kill since World War II. But here is the uncomfortable truth. India has 16 submarines, viewer. Most of them are old. Several are barely operational. The 6 Soviet-era Kilo-class submarines acquired in the 1980s and 90s, like this one, are all on life extension or they are retired. Then there's something called the P-75I program meant to replace these, but that has been delayed so many times it has become a national embarrassment. We may see those boats in the mid-2030s, maybe. And while India has nailed the art of building nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, vessels of extraordinary complexity, the ones we need even more urgently, are precisely the kind that America sent to sink that Iranian warship. Nuclear-powered attack submarines, we don't have them. In simple words, we have the most dangerous end of the submarine spectrum, the ones that can fire ballistic nuclear missiles, the one that we'll hopefully never need to use because that would mean nuclear war. But we don't have the workhorse submarines that we need to use every single day to make the ocean genuinely ours, like the submarine that you see firing the torpedo in these pictures. Did you know that for nearly 40 years, we have leased nuclear attack submarines from Russia, like this one? One in, one out, years of a gap in between, renting someone else's deterrence and calling it capability. We've leased another, by the way. It's going to come in 2028. And only recently have we woken up to the need to build our own submarines like that one that was prowling off the coast of Sri Lanka, waiting to attack that Iranian warship. The Chinese also send their versions into the Indian Ocean quite regularly. They map our waters, monitor our movements, remind us of their reach, and we have as yet no equivalent answer. The boat that killed the Iranian warship IRIS Dena did not ask permission, it did not negotiate. It simply appeared, delivered that torpedo, and then just submerged and vanished. The Iranian warship was no match. It had no chance whatsoever. Like I said, it's been a sitting duck. But that is also a part of sea power. The very presence of those American submarines makes the enemy hesitate, go back to port, cancel missions. That is why India has spent decades deferring, delays and deprioritizing, but no longer. Because what happened yesterday in our oceanic backyard is a wake-up call that India's Navy and India's government can no longer ignore.